meeting of the House Local Government Committee to order. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Representative Bentley.
Here.
Representative Brown. Representative Donahue. Representative Elkins.
Here.
Representative Frazier.
Here.
Representative Gravis.
Here.
Representative Howard. Representative Huff.
Here.
Representative King.
Yes, ma'am.
Representative Koenig.
Here.
Representative Lee. Representative Meyer. Representative Miller.
Here.
Representative Reed. Representative Rothenberger. Representative Sims. Representative Tackett Lafferty. Representative Meredith.
Yes, ma'am. I think we can pass over the introduction of special guests today. This time we will call up Senate Bill 103. Senator Caslin, if you'd come to the table and introduce yourself, and then you can proceed with testimony. I do know there are a couple other meetings going on right now, so we may have people coming in and out a little bit. But these should be relatively quick, I think. But we want to give anybody any chance that they have to answer any questions or anything else. Proceed, Senator.
Mr. Chairman, Representatives, thank you all for your time today. I know it's quite unusual in the town right now, and so it's kind of odd not having a crowd behind us. But this is just a bill here. Being from Davis County, living in one of the largest agriculture districts in the state of Kentucky, that we started seeing a need for just a few years back. I don't know if you all remember, in 2017 or 18, we passed a bill that included aquaculture and horticulture for some of these exemptions. And so what we've done is we've taken in statute, we've just developed a new definition of farmstead that's going to allow anybody that's actively engaged in production agriculture to be exempt from some of these requirements and codes on the plumbing and sewage side from 10 acres to 5 acres. This particular bill, people probably wonder, why is it in the sewage and the plumbing side? Because currently our building code already exempts individuals for agricultural use. Currently, if you'll look in your folder, I think Representative Meredith might have put in there from Stephen kind of laying that out when we started working on this statute. And so we felt it was important to include this, and the reason being, it doesn't include any dwellings. The committee substitute, we took that out so that nobody could build a house on a tract of land and get by without being able to do this. So what this is agriculture structures only, such as a greenhouse that people are building now. If you need a water line in there for watering your plants, for some of the beekeepers, and then even on a larger scale. In our district, people are looking to build grain systems and things. Instead of building them in the middle of production agriculture land, they're trying to build these things along a state highway somewhere where they can get in and out with their trucks and not take up good production land and build this infrastructure in areas that they can use it. So it's a good bill. I think it kind of modernizes our agriculture exemptions and brings it kind of into place as our state keeps growing a little further out with our urban areas. So members, at this time, I'll take any questions someone might have.
Representative Gravis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for bringing the bill. Just a couple of questions. If we were to pass this bill, would it result in more homes not being subject to the plumbing code?
No.
I didn't think so.
Because dwellings has been moved, it's for agriculture structures only, not for any type of house.
Can I have a follow-up, Mr. Chairman, please?
Sure, go ahead, Representative.
Would you mind helping me understand the difference about having systems installed by certified people and non-certified? Is this increasing the amount of non-certified installations?
Well, I guess that would be up to the individual that was having the system installed. What this does is just requires them not to have to go through the permitting process on a 5 acre or more piece of agricultural land for agriculture infrastructure only. So being certified or not certified, if they hire it done, I guess that's up to their calls. If they want to put it in themselves, I guess then you could say it would be.
Follow up?
Go ahead.
Thank you for that and for the clarification. If I was to put in a barn, not going to live in it, but I'm going to have a bathroom in it, what do I do?
At that point, you could put in your own sewage system and water lines if you wanted to. because you would be exempt if you qualify under production agriculture. If you're actively engaged in agriculture, if it's a hobby farm and things like that, it's not included. This is for production agriculture who has a FSA number, because if you look at the new farmstead definition in KRS chapter 211 in the bill, it states and lays out now what that qualification would be for a farmstead.
So would the straight pipe rules apply? Or could you get around the straight pipe rules?
If you are an actively engaged agriculture productionist and you are more than 5 acres, you do not have to have a permit to build a sewage system. How you build it would be up to you at that point. And I think when we read into this language, the reason that you raise those questions is because in the building code currently now, you don't have to have a permit to build a building. What this does, basically, it brings it into the same type of context of saying, okay, if you can build an agriculture building on any size acres and you're actively engaged in production agriculture, but then you have to turn around and get a plumbing and all the other type of codes, at that point, that might raise up the ADA concerns, the parking lot concerns and stuff like that. And so what we're trying to do is say, okay, you want to build a greenhouse on your farm, or if you're somebody that's you know, doing some organic type farming or beekeeping and you need to run a water line to your greenhouse, at this point you don't have to get the state permit.
Thank you so much.
Motion on the bill.
Have motion Representative Miller. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second, Representative Bentley. Any other questions at this time from members of the committee? Hold for a second, I may have another question. Give me just a second. Question, Representative Tackett Lafferty. Please proceed.
This has to do with the potential conflict between the definition of farmstead in this bill with other provisions in state law that define a farmstead as being one of a minimum of 10 acres. For example, the Kentucky Agricultural Water Quality Act, as defined by KRS 224, defines best practices for farmsteads regarding waste and water management. Is this bill intended to affect those programs?
No, absolutely not. It is only intended for the plumbing code under this particular statute. And so that's why it is actually below it in the subsection, and that's why it talks about the dwellings only, because we didn't want to have a negative effect on agriculture by changing the definition of farmstead. So thank you for the question.
Okay.
Thanks for clarifying that.
Yeah. Good question. Should have mentioned that.
No other questions right now? All right, Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Representative Bentley?
Yes.
Representative Brown?
Yes.
Representative Elkins?
Yes.
Representative Frazier?
Yes.
Representative Gravis?
Yes, ma'am.
Representative Huff?
Yes.
Representative King?
Yes, ma'am.
Representative Koenig?
Yes.
Representative Miller?
Yes.
Representative Tackett Lafferty?
Yes.
Representative Meredith?
Yes, ma'am. Senate Bill 103 does pass with favorable expression. Same should on the House floor. Thank you, Senator.
Will it be all right to have consent?
I think consent is being handled by the Rules Committee, so it would not be a proper motion at this time in this committee, but there's a chance for that based on the Rules Committee.
Members, thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you.
Senator Wheeler, Senate Bill 111, please come up, introduce yourself, and proceed with your presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm Senator Philip Wheeler from the 31st District, representing Pike, Martin, Lawrence, Elliott, and Morgan counties. Senate Bill 111 was a bill that was initially brought to me by one of our local police departments in my district. Approximately 2 years ago, we had an officer that was killed in the line of duty. He was sent to the state medical examiner per protocol, and when his body was returned, it was in a there was a large crowd meeting, and it was in such a way that was disturbing to many of the people on scene. I think he was brought back on a stretcher with just a sheet and a flag draped over him. And apparently in talking to some other officers, including some people in the Police Chiefs Association, this is not the first time that that's happened. So Senate Bill 111 was thereby brought about to give these first responders, our frontline soldiers within the Commonwealth, to keep our communities safe.
Motion on the bill.
Have a motion, Representative Gravis.
Second.
Second, Representative Miller. Any questions? Seeing none, Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Representative Bentley?
Yes.
Representative Brown?
Yes.
Representative Elkins?
Yes.
Representative Frazier?
Yes.
Representative Gravis?
Yes.
Representative Huff?
Yes.
Representative King?
Yes, ma'am.
Representative Koenig?
Yes.
Representative Miller?
Yes.
Representative Tackett Lafferty? Representative Meredith?
Yes, ma'am. Senate Bill 111 does pass with favorable expression. Same should on the House floor. Thank you,
Thank you,
Senator.
Mr. Chairman.
Seeing no other business before the committee, we will deem this meeting adjourned.